All right, so here we go. Again, I'm Taj Jimenez. I've been a teacher for 5 years already. I'm from the Philippines, but I currently teach at Singapore in a private institution. So yes, as introduced, I have been creating a lot of content for the field of education, and that includes video script writing for content, a curriculum consultant. So I have made structure of curriculum already for a specific age group. So I've been teaching ages 18 months to 5 years and up to 9 years. So that's the childhood development age. So when they go on to age 10, they start to develop on their pre-adolescent stages already. So today we'll be zooming in on how to teach in a diverse society. Pleasant morning, evening, or afternoon to all. So this is our agenda for today. So we only have three, but we will be doing in-depth discussion. So I hope you will be as collaborative this evening, morning, or afternoon. So you may put in the chat box if you have specific questions, and we'll try to answer it at the end of the session. Okay, so here you go. You may join in our Mentimeter. So you may use your phone cameras to scan the code, or you may go to mentimeter.com and enter 195293995, and I will be presenting some questions there alongside the presentation. So if you see the barcode here at the upper right corner, then that means a question will be posted in Mentimeter. All right, I'll put it in the chat as well. That's 195293095. There you go.
So basically, you want everybody to go there right now. They'll join you and they'll be able to participate with you there at that website?
Yes, you will be doing it simultaneously with Zoom and the presentation.
So everybody go ahead and join that website, www.menti.com, and enter those 8 numbers. Oh, is it mentimeter.com?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Menti.com.
Menti.com.
All right, it's in the chat box. So we will have that later on. All right, so somehow, if you would imagine, in however way, a person will be different from every other person in a group, just like us in this Zoom call. And this uniqueness will make us, well, unique, diverse. As we live in a world where everything is accessible online, you might have heard some of the aspects here at UC on the screen. These are some of the aspects of being diverse, such as race, ethnicity, gender and sexual identity, socioeconomic status, neurodiversity, etc., etc. And these are some of the things that children actually are starting to learn by themselves. And as educators, we are supposed to be there to guide them, to give them a safe space to express these diversities that they may be experiencing in their community. And there is a definitive gap to children's success, actually, when it comes to the minority of these diverse people. Because as adults, we even, we have prejudices to other people that are not the same with us. So children are I believe children are the hugest minority of this one, because they're not able to champion for themselves. I mean, there might be some children that can eloquently ask for what they need and what their problems are, where they are lacking. But for the most part, I don't think children can change a thing without the help of us adults and mainly educators in the classroom, where they spend 8 hours through the day, or here in Singapore, some children even spend 12 hours inside the classroom. So we have to learn how to give them the space and to advocate for what they need, because as the people who see them the most during the day, who hear most of their problems, children can talk a lot. And I'm inviting you to bring yourself back to the earliest memory you have of school. So you think of that time, your earliest memory. It could be in primary school, could be in preschool, could be in middle school, secondary school. Think of a certain situation where you think your situation right now would be completely different if you would have been slightly accommodated by the adults around you. Is there any instance for you where you felt like if a certain adult um, reacted a different way to a problem or a situation or an achievement that I had, would I have the same perspective um, as I have today? Would I have the same mindset as I do today? You may put it in the chat box if you have any short or you may unmute also. You may raise your hand to share your experiences. So while I'm waiting for someone to share, I would share this specific situation in school where in Southeast Asia, schools can be very competitive, and the parents are usually the ones who are encouraging the children to join such competitions in school. So when I was in second grade, um, I I joined this poetry speaking competition, and then at the same time, my younger sister also joined their poetry speaking competition in the lower grade. And so my sister won the first prize, right? But I only won the third. And so I received a comparison from not only my parents, but also the teachers that were in school. Because, of course, siblings, they look alike. And some of you might have the same set of teachers from level 1 to level 2. So they get to compare, oh, your sister is like this. How come you're slightly different? How come this is how you react? Then it started to, impact the way I viewed school. So, it's a competition between me and my sister. So throughout until high school, I felt a little burnt out about learning with that kind of mindset that it's a competitive situation, right? Instead of learning because I loved to learn or because I wanted to join competitions, it only became a reason to get parents' attention, maybe more love from educators. There are probably other situations for other people who might have been like that. For example, a socioeconomic example would be if you don't have enough resources, you won't be able to enroll in a review center and actually practice and review for a specific entrance exam in a prestigious school. So you won't be able to pay for that tutorial, right? And that's a way where children don't have or have unequal opportunities in the field of education. So some of the brightest people might only be bright because they have, I mean, they appear to be bright and they are bright because they have had the opportunities, like they have the resources to do it. They have the time. I mean, these children don't have, for example, to take care of their siblings or go to work. Or these children are favored by the society because they look well pleasing to the eye. Or maybe these children have more opportunities because, well, they're the majority and they're not some weird looking child who doesn't know how to eloquently explain themselves or ask for what they need. It's very typical for adults to judge children with the way they act, but we have to remember that these are humans that are trying to be, well, humans, and how we act around them, how we react, how we talk to them will highly influence how they grow up and how they talk to us in the future. And we have to remember these children are going to be part of the society that will lead us when we're old. So 2 decades from now, the way you talk to this specific child will be the way they talk to us when we're the minority and we're old and we're gray and we can't impact society as much as we can now. All right, I want to show you this video of how diverse, or it might show what kinds of diversities there are in the US population. I believe most of us, well, most of you are in the United States as of now. Let's watch this. All right, so that was a great visual to see how, I think it makes it easier for us to see how diverse the population is. And it's quite the same with children inside the classroom. Yes, yes, who is this, Abilene? Do you have a question or do you want to share something?
Hello, good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Abilene and I am from Trinidad. Trinidad is a Caribbean island and it's so nice to be here. And you were speaking about competition among children. In our culture here in Trinidad and Tobago, you would find that children are very competitive, especially when it comes to sports days, when it comes to end of term, because if one child continuously comes first every term, you will find that the children get motivated to come first that other term that is coming. So now as we are close to the end of the term, we are now in the third quarter of the year because we are taking a break for 2 weeks for Easter. So children would have just completed their end of term examinations. So they're very competitive as well in Trinidad. That's the culture here, very, very competitive, as I said, in sports days, at school with assignments. Everybody wants to come first. Everybody wants to get 100% on their exam, you know. And where I am sitting at currently, I have applied to be a teacher. I have also applied in the UK. I've applied in London. You know, I'm also trying to see if I can get my visa for New Zealand, Australia, because I have a strong desire for children. I want to to get into the minds of them. I want to be able to help them in their studies, to support them. And I have this deep desire for children. Hence the reason why when I saw this Zoom meeting, I was so excited to be a part of it. And I'm here to learn more about child development, you know, because in Trinidad, we have pre-K, early childhood education, we have primary school, we have secondary school, and we also have tertiary education, which is university. So there's a lot of aspects of education here in Trinidad. So my desire is to teach children from ages 3 to 7. I'm understanding that you are teaching from 18 months, you said, to 5 years. And that's an awesome age bracket where you can mold them and shape them, you know, and help them on that right track. So this is really exciting for me. And I'm here to learn more. As I said, my desire is to teach children between that age of 3 years to 7 years old. So I'm listening on and I'm very excited. And I'm trusting that one day soon I can get into the school system, be it abroad or in my own country, because I believe that I have so much to give. I have so much to impart in the minds of children, and I really want to make a difference in the society here and abroad. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that sharing. That's very inspirational. I think as educators, we should have this drive to be happy, to be where we are, you know, because if you are happy working in your environment, you have peers, you have co-workers that support you. I think that also impacts your work ethic and the way you speak to the child. Thank you for that share.
You are most welcome. Have a good one. I'm listening and I'm excited.
All right. So we were talking about minorities, and aside from underprivileged children, there are also moments. Okay, here you go. There are also people of color and neurodivergent people. So I think these three are the most impacted children in school: the underprivileged, people of color, children of color, and neurodivergent people, because not everyone is equipped to handle talking about these things. Sometimes it could be a sensitive topic to talk about money. How much do we need to go on this field trip? Why is my classmate darker than I am? Why do they have this kind of hair? Why do they speak this kind of language? Why is their food like this? Why does she eat that way? You know, they have different things that they bring along to school, and children raise questions that sometimes adults aren't really equipped to to answer, because sometimes these are also things that we also asked as children but never had the answer to. So, but you know, as adults, and now that we are in a very progressive society, you should learn to embrace and try to learn with the children. So sometimes in my class, I actually tell them, if I don't know the answer, I tell them, I don't know the answer for now, but maybe we can talk about it later on. Let me look into it and then I'll answer you tomorrow. And sometimes the children, they actually follow up. So it makes you more makes you want to be more responsible with answering the questions, since the way you answer them and your answers will also be in their brains already. So if you tell them this reason, that answer, they will share it to their family. And if they have a sibling, the sibling will share it to another person. You know, children Yes, they do that. So we have to be very mindful and careful with the way we answer, even our tone and the way we converse. So why should we be embracing diversity in the classroom? So this will help students develop social awareness. That will give them an appreciation to different perspectives and draw stronger conclusions. So if they have different exposures to different, for example, ethnicities, different practices, their mind will start to wander on the hows and the whys, and it will give them a perfect opportunity to practice critical thinking compared to if we stick them to one routine or one specific example. For example, the storybooks that we use, children intently listen and maybe they don't realize it for now, but after a while, if you only show, for example, storybooks mainly of, for example, white children, then they might begin to question, why don't I look like the pretty pictures in the books? Or if we don't show um children that aren't well off in books that are happy, because sometimes it's mostly unhappy socioeconomically deprived people, um children will start to feel a little icky with where they are, especially with how parents answer them at home, with how other children treat them differently at school. Oh, she can't join us in this specific playground because this playground has an entrance fee, and their parents cannot afford their entrance fee. See, so they having exposures and good communication with children about these kinds of topics, even though they're a little bit sensitive, will help them improve their critical thinking skills. So we actually don't want to influence them of our opinions, but just to give them the truth about it. So maybe we can say, hey, all of the books we have here have light skin because the library that is near to us have a majority of white people, so they enjoy this kind of content. But I will be glad to show you other um photos or other books that have children that look like us. Yeah, and once they have practice, conversing about the sensitive topics, they will have academic confidence. They will have confidence to ask and to research on their own. So they will see, oh, my teacher doesn't know. Then she researches. So she looks more about it. So maybe that's what I should do too. Like if my question isn't answered, or if there's no question or there's no time for my question, then maybe I should do my part to look. And I've seen this with 5-year-olds. For example, in the past election in the Philippines, we did talk about what would make a good leader in the Philippines. I asked this to 5 to 6-year-old children. I asked them, hey, what makes a good leader? So a leader is like, when you're playing, this is the person who tells you the rules. This is the person who you will follow and you will have a great time with, and everyone will be safe because this person will, well, lead the whole group, and you will all enjoy your game because you have a leader to follow. And they all had different ideas, such as the leader shouldn't be a person who hurts people. The leader shouldn't be a person who takes things from other playmates. Or the leader shouldn't be a person who says bad words. And so I rephrased it. I reframed their perspective. Now we are looking, this country is looking for a leader. Now, if we were looking for a leader for the whole country, so of course it was a big concept to them because a city is a big place for a child, right? So I had to give them that perspective that the whole country is, hundreds of cities, hundreds of islands, and they said then it should be the same. It should be like mom or like dad who have these goals, who can tell us what they want with a good reason. See, they can reason out. These children can reason out if only they had the voice. So if we accommodate these kinds of collaborations and conversations in class, we would see how our children think, and we would be able to know how to scaffold this into higher form of thinking. Yes, Miss Ivy.
Yeah, Taj, thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to know, at what age do you develop your child's talent? You can see that a child has a talent, maybe in ballad dance. And at what age can you help to develop that talent?
Oh, this is a very good question. Okay, so children have different interests, right? And sometimes they would focus on one interest more than they would on other interests. So for example, a 2-year-old child might show interest already in wearing tutus, wearing, twirling around. Well, one thing we should do is reflect, where did they get this kind of picture? Is this a picture they see around them? Do they have a sibling that they might be sharing an interest with? Are they exposed to, for example, concerts? Maybe their parents go to concerts and they bring along. So if they have this very strong attachment, or very strong zooming in into an interest, we should always accommodate it. So as young as they would be, we should try to accommodate it and try to nourish it. And if they lose interest, we should not shame them for saying no, for stopping. We should respect them if they say, I'm not interested anymore. Then that's it. That's the end of the maybe you would want to learn why they don't want to anymore. But we don't want to push them because we already allotted a lot of resources for it. For example, ballet lessons, you have to pay for that, right? So some parents might be angry that, hey, we already spent this much amount of money for this, so why are you stopping? You cannot stop now. You're about to go to regionals, or you're about to go to nationals, and you cannot. Then that will impact their decision making in the future. So if they already invested on a certain thing, and even if they feel lost in it already when they're adults, then they might feel this guilt, and they might not understand where the guilt is coming from. Why am I not stopping, even if I already want to stop? So the answer to your question is just very simple. If they are interested already as early as 2, 5, encourage, nurture, scaffold, enrich. But once they are showing that they don't want to do it anymore, let's not shame them. Let's not push them any further. Let's try to understand where they're coming from. And from there, make a decision, not for them, but for how you reacted. You ask them, what is your decision now? This is your interest. You own your own decision. So if you stop now, then it's a halt. If you want to go back, then you have to learn how to say it, how to ask for it again. You cannot be shy if you want to go back again. There's no shame in trying again if you want to, but if you want to stop now, then it's a halt. There you go. I hope that answered your question, Miss Ivy.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. One more. Yes, Deng Rang, Mr. Deng Rang. Oh, you are still on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, my name is Deng Rang. I was in Michigan, East Coast of Michigan, and me and my wife, I was interested for this. I do another program, but I was interested for this because we do the daycare enterprise since 2018. The childcare is my passion with my wife. How to support the kid, how can be accessible for the whole family. My question is, I say, there is a barrier between the kid and kid all the time.
Mhm.
It is a development of the kid is affected by the parent who can raise the children, like environmental can affect developing, like for example, how they think, how they act. Because sometimes when we get people, we get them differently.
Mhm.
You can same age, but they act differently. What are the factors who can affect the kid? Is it the parent, environmental? What are the issues? Do you get my question or no?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Can I repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll try to speak slowly. My question, I say, we are the child care owner.
Mhm.
We do the business for the daycare. And therefore, when the children come to us,
Mhm.
sometimes they have different behavior. And they can vary from one family to another family. My question, I say, is that one is a environmental or that is the parent who can raise the children?
Is it an environmental
Yeah, factor. Like for example,
factor?
yeah, I want to know what makes them different. What makes children act?
Um, what makes them different even if they have the same community?
Yes.
Yes. Well, their families are all different. They might have different setups. Their friends might also have different level of friendships. One
Yeah.
might have a best friend for a long time already, and one might have a lot of best friends that, a string of best friends, and maybe they don't relate the same way to each other. And maybe the way their parents react around them is also a huge influence to how they speak for themselves, because I believe children reflect how they are being treated. So if one child, for example, from this family, reacts very rudely to a very simple question, then there are many layers to that, because their family isn't just composed of their parents, their siblings. It's also their aunties, their uncles, the people they converse with outside their family, their neighborhood. Like how are their neighbors treating them? Maybe one neighbor is an alcoholic, for example, and they aren't sheltered, maybe. So they kind of think this behavior is normal. So maybe they will try to mimic the way this person will talk. Or for example, another child might have a different religion. So they might have different practices throughout the day. One might pray for 3 times, one in the morning, at noon, and at night. But some other people might pray on a different time, or some people not at all. So children might have a belief in a higher being. Sometimes they don't. And actually, this affects how they behave as well.
Okay. What about the diversity? Like for example, is diversity, for example, some of the Hispanic, some of the white, and some of the black. Do they have a barrier that they cannot grow together? Do we have a gap that can affect them individually?
I feel like it's the adults that make the barrier. I feel like if children of different races, nationalities, ethnicities are put together, I feel like there would be curiosity, but at the same time, they would seek validation from the adults around them. So maybe they would ask, "Hey, mom, does this person look like my friend? Do you have a friend that looks like this person?" Then their mom might act in a way that looks repulsive, or maybe it's internalized and they try to be progressive, but in reality, they're far off to the right. So this will impact the way children response. So as what I was saying a while ago, if they don't have this open communication at home, then we might as well provide it at school. But I'm also aware that not all classrooms um, have the time to actually discuss this with their children, right? So let's not stop in the classroom. If you want to advocate for a certain advocacy, then we must try to extend it beyond the classroom and into the community that we have around us, because this community will also impact the children, and these children will come into the classroom. So it's a cycle. So whatever you voice out to the other adults around you, it will circle back to how um the children absorb.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was a great input, because I myself and my family, we were provide the quality that can be affordable. We can support family individually. We can make the community be connected with the children. And when we see the barrier sometimes, and that's why I had the question, when I came here in 2001, I was a refugee. And I don't know how to write, but I'm doing my PhD now with this school now. I have master degree in law, oil, gas, energy law. And I was working in the hospital for 16 years. Therefore, when I come out, I have a passion with kids. I love kids in my family. I want to support other families to upgrade their life and to be stable. Sometimes I see that what I say sometimes when we see some kids the same age and they have a good moral, they are so friendly and they want to help one another. Some kids, they don't want to play with others. They don't want to do anything with other kids. And that is the big gap when we try to put them together. I myself, I tend my room. I teach them every day. I do alphabet. I do coloring. I do some that they can develop them. They can develop them. It's not required by the daycare, but I myself, I want them to be successful in life. And that's what I like mostly. And thank you for your input. And I appreciate your class and the school. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dengrang.
Yeah.
All right, so these different quirks of the children, they make the classroom interesting. They make newer topics to talk about. And as we talked about a while ago, having this diverse classroom, this diverse group of people in our classroom will make children have stronger conclusions and different perspectives. I'll be answering questions again after the next slide, if that's okay. Maybe the next slide would answer some of your questions too. So after the why, now that you know why it's important to accommodate diversity inside the classroom, you must reflect while you are in your classroom. You ask yourself, where are you right now, emotionally, physically? How are you feeling? What kind of teaching environment do you have today? Is it a happy one? Do you feel happy? Are the people around you influencing you to be a little bit cranky? For example, it's a Monday and everyone, well, most people don't like working on a Monday. So you have to think about what factors will influence how you will behave today, how you will react to the children and the people around you. And you have to think what support will be available to you on the event that you would need it. So would you have a co-teacher to lean on if you would need a break? For example, today is just not your day. Would you have a co-teacher to cover the lesson while you take a breather, for example, a 5-minute breather outside, 10 minutes? 15 minutes if it's allowed. And then once you've grounded where you are at that moment in your classroom, you have to ask yourself, what does your class need from you? So what does my class need from me? So for example, the example of Deng Rang just a while ago, if there is a child that doesn't want to share, and there is a child that always shares, then there's already an imbalance in the classroom. Now, what do these children need at the moment? Do they need more sensorial activities, a variety of it? Do they have, do they need more social emotional interaction? Do they need more attention? You know, attention is a very good factor when children behave, because if a child is lacking attention, then they might start to act quite differently than what they how they act. So you have to ask yourself, what do these children need from me right now? Do they need to be processed? Do I need to talk to them, you know, process them along their emotions, process them along the step-by-step problem solving of a certain situation? Or do they just need some loving? Some children just need some loving in the middle of whatever they're going through. Maybe that's what they need at the moment, and we should be able to do that. And how are we going to be in tune with their needs if we're not in tune with our own needs, if that makes sense, right? So if you're not attuned to yourself, then how are you going to be able to give that kind of support to these children in your classroom? And once you have identified what your class needs, what processes will be most successful and most helpful, then you have to compare it to what has worked before. But I'm not saying that everything that worked before is something you should do again, because this is in the process of reflection. So we have to improve it. We have to ask who was not accommodated in the processes that I did before. Was there a student that kept on asking more? Was there a student that seemed uninterested? So we have to reflect on these kinds of questions so that we can improve on the next step that we will make. And how are we going to do that? Well, just said right now, it is to evaluate your teaching materials, your processes in the classroom, to introduce adaptive technology that would accommodate more neurodivergence in the classroom, use different types of instruction, such as maybe music, maybe movement, maybe different numeracy strategies paired up with literacy. At home, how are you going to influence your parents? Well, to be actually connected with them. You ask your parents, for example, a child is suddenly behaving in a way that they don't used to behave. So the first thing you ask, if it's not influenced in the classroom, then you ask how they are at home. Maybe there's a situation at home that is influencing their emotions and they're not allowed to have that release at home. They don't have a safe space at home. So instead they release it at school by biting, throwing things, having tantrums. So we have to connect with parents to ask about how children are at home so we can further understand how they behave at school. In school, we don't only converse inside the classroom, we have to collaborate with the staff to provide experiences that are multicultural and have a diverse instruction made available to all. And also to hire diversely as possible. So for example, in my workplace, they really take this hiring diversely very seriously. So so they count how many people from each country is. And then in the faculty, there is a very healthy number of people from different cultures. So any child that might come from any culture in Southeast Asia will be accommodated in the school because there's a diverse staff already that can share, can enrich other children, can provide experiences that is authentic and natural to them. With the community, as mentioned a while ago, it is by being proactive, in being inclusive, and being willing to address inequality. So we have to extend our advocacy with the children, the parents, our co-staff in the school, with the community that we actually have, because this will all influence how a child will be learning in their whole childhood. Oh, okay, let me read some of the chats. Thank you so much. Botsalano, Mr. Botsalano. Oh, Miss Botsalano. All right. She said, I know a number of people who were the best in academics throughout their schooling years, but because they did not have enlightened parents, they did not choose the best career. I agree with that. To get the top jobs in the country, a few of them ended up poor. I would have done better in my career choice if I had parents with a bit of money to sponsor me after high school so that I could reinforce my high school certificate and choose the top career. However, I love my professional career, an educator. I completely agree with you. I also feel I would have had a different career choice if the yes, I completely relate to what you said. Lerato said, when it comes to the issue of diversity in classrooms, one of the best approaches is to bring awareness to both teachers and parents first. For them to teach students that people are different in color, financially, language, etc., and we should all respect and appreciate one another as human beings, irrespective of these. This is key, and classrooms can be happy places for all if these issues are addressed accordingly. Well said. But I would remind you to not influence your child of your own opinions and just present them with the truth, just the truth. You let them think, even if their opinion, even if their reaction to what you just said isn't the reaction you wanted to elicit from them, then give them more opportunities to converse about that topic so that they have a um, stronger base of what they believe in. So we have to give them the truth and trust the process that they will eventually learn. They will eventually have a very humane answer to the questions that they post in their life. So there are different age groups in school that have different settings, and you know the way we speak to them should vary. So for example, for infants and toddlers 3 months to 2 years, we should not be talking to them like a 5-year-old. This is different to what other people said. Some people might say talk to your child like an adult already. I don't feel like this is true. If a child is a child, then we must treat them like a child. 1 year at a time, I believe. So if they are 2, then it's okay to talk to them in a very slow and high-pitched voice. If they are 4 to 5, then maybe lessen the squeakiness of your tone, but still have that vigorousness in talking to them, so that they can also have this energy when talking to other people. When they're already 7 to 9, maybe start introducing slightly longer words and make sure that they understand the rationality, the history of the word, the way they use it in their communities. Because, for example, this word might mean a completely different thing in a different community. So they must understand that already before you start introducing even more complex words and even more complex lines of reasoning. So if they are young, talk to them like they are young, and as they grow older, progress to more complex conversations. I would like to invite you in Menti, if you are here. In Mentimeter, if you scanned the code. Oh, I see you already answered. All right, let me present and let's share the results together. Let's look at the results together and discuss, because this is a very, very interesting frame. So I asked, growing up, and then 3 different situations. So at the far left, this is not my truth. So if you don't relate to it, and to the right, if you could relate. So these 3 are, I have seen representation I can relate to in the media that was available to me. See, this is a far off to the right. It's not even in the middle, right? So all of us can relate that we don't see a variety of media that we can relate to as children. And even if I don't know if you can relate to me, but even if some companies produce media that are actually very diverse, some people are not as welcoming to share this content with their children. So even if there's more, or there's a variety of more content for the children, it's still the adults that control their consumption. And down to the second point, the adults around me proactively discussed and corrected inequality instead of ignoring them. We have seen the adults around us, I mean, as children, if they're not comfortable, they just don't ask me any of that, right? It's a very, very usual line to say, that if you don't know, if you don't want to address it, if you're not comfortable, if an adult is not comfortable, they disregard the question and discourage you from asking any topic related to that. So this is still prevalent even up to today. And the last one is, my community had plenty of activities that required little to no monetary expenses for the youth. Correct. Most of the activities, especially now that the lockdown has eased out, more experiences for children often have entrance fees to them. So it's not very accessible to all children. I mean, we understand that these places have to maintain their places, they have to pay for their staff, but this is where we have to seek accountability from our governments, our local government units. What are they doing to provide experiences for the children in our community, right? So we have to also question the people not just adults, right? But more of the people in power. What can they offer us? They are in the position to change something, to advocate for children, children's education, but what are they doing about it, right? So as educators, I feel like we should be more persistent in asking about this. All right. There you go. I changed the question, and mentee, we will be discussing this later on. It is the same code. It's 195299395, mentee.com, 195299395. I changed the slide already. And if you would like to share, well, I would also be sharing screenshots of this so that we can all ponder on it even after our session. All right, we are already an hour up. Okay, so I will be showing examples of some of the activities that you may want to replicate in your classrooms, because it is these are activities that are very open-ended, activities that are very welcoming to different kinds of diversity. So for example, for children that are young, infants and toddlers, since they are still in the age of dramatic play, you may want to include dolls that have different skin colors. And even more, to make it even more specific, you might even include dolls that have only one limb, and not make that a shameful thing or a pitiful thing. It's just some people don't have two hands. Some people just are born with one hand, and we don't have to pity them. It's a normal thing. That's just the way they are. So if children are exposed to these kinds of toys, they won't have a singular perspective on what a human should look like. There you go, Waldorf Dolls. For ages 3 to 10, these are community map blocks, but you may use it in other ways. So you can put pictures on the blocks, and it could be forms of transportation, and then the children might want to share about their community. For example, oh, I go to this street to go get ice cream with my nana, and this is what we eat. And then it would open up a whole different conversation about food. How healthy is a child's relationship with food? Are they allowed to eat as much as they can? Are they encouraged to eat just until they feel full? Do the adults around them trust when they say they're full? Or do the adults give prizes for finishing a whole plate of food? See, this is a whole different discussion, and children will be diverse in how they react to certain situations, such as food, right? Even our children, if you have children, I'm sure there's a way that you encourage them to finish the plate, to eat, for example, a certain kind of cuisine, or stray away from a certain kind of cuisine. We might not be very aware, but sometimes we don't present children with a variety. So having children share these kinds of interactions in their community opens up a discussion inside your classroom that is safe and open, and is just founded on curiosity. When they are a bit older, here you go, a more complex form of show and tell is to let them bring stuff from home. So some children might see, oh, that's a new kind of object, and they might start to wonder and ask when they come home. They might say, hey dad, I saw this different kind of for example, toy. It's a wooden toy and it looks like this. Would you know where we can find it? Or have you ever played with it? Or why don't we have this at home? Why are all my toys plastic? Why are all my toys lighting up and have sounds? Why is this child's toy very nice, but it's wooden, it doesn't move? You know, these are questions. See, you would see the line of thinking of children. Like, what are their priorities? Where did they get influenced by these priorities? How do they form these questions in their minds? And we started by a simple show and tell. And when they become, you know, a little bit older and they have this line of reasoning already, we have already started with their critical thinking, different perspectives, different experiences, then we might encourage them to rally for what they believe in, right? Because we have to listen to what they also think. We have to reframe this mindset that only us adults will be right, because we're not always right. Sometimes children's perspectives have more sense than us because they're more open-minded. They're not prejudiced in whatever decision. They just advocate for what they believe in, for what they think is right, what is right for them, what they feel is right for their friends, their siblings, their neighbors. They don't make decisions because they will gain any money. I mean, why would children do that, right? I mean, and if they would, they're influenced by the adults around them. So you would question. It's a whole cycle of questioning, reflecting, going back around. And again, these are some of the questions that we should ask ourselves. If we gave students what they need, if we're presenting the content in a way that they understand, could we have framed our content differently? Maybe show different kinds of examples. We have to reflect if we are giving a variety of content to our children, because even us, we already have our own perspectives. We're already biased to the content we want to show our children, right? So we have to reflect on this, not just every term, every semester, maybe even every day, and just journal it. Maybe it could be 2 words, 4 words, but you will see gradually every day how it changes inside your classroom. It might be a gradual change, but it is still change, and it still impacts our children. We have to ask, what environment, or was the environment conducive to the children's unfoldment? Were we open to their questions? Were we welcome to their curiosity, or did we shut it down when we did not know? Did we give a completely biased answer? Did we correct our answers the following day once we realized it was incorrect? No, these are questions we should ask ourselves. What elements would I keep and build upon? So what elements worked? What did not? What should I continue? Did I discuss with my co-teachers? Did they do this too? Am I doing it in a whole different way? Is it wrong to do it in a whole different way? Is there anything we need to change for the next class, for the younger class, for the older class? We have to constantly reflect and think about what happened today, what might happen tomorrow, as this greatly affects not just today and tomorrow, but 20 years from now. Then you will feel how you affected the next generation, the way they will lead humanity in the next 2 decades. Do we still have time for a short activity, or shall I wrap it up? Do we have any questions?
If you have time, Taj Jimenez, we have time. It's up to you, really.
All right, maybe
If you need to go, or you need to cut the time short, there's no problem. We do have 2 more questions.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll spare some time for 2 more questions or sharings.
And then think about if you have more to present, maybe think about the next time presenting that for the next live session.
All right. We can. I'm also doing a lot of reflecting at the moment. So of course, I'm very biased in what I presented because this is in line with my experiences. But hearing other experiences from people that are not from my community, it has opened up my eyes to what other kinds of situations children might be put in different sides of the world. Okay, so I'll be entertaining the questions and then we'll be wrapping it up.
Okay, we'll start with Abilene. Whoops.
Hello, you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. You spoke a while ago about preparing the next generation, and I'm thinking about many times we try to instill in children the things that we used to do when we were younger, when our parents, had tried to teach us things, and then we try to tell our children what we want them to do. But we have to remember, that these children are going out into the world. At some point, they're going to meet other peers, they're going to go to different schools, and they're going to meet other people, other children who have different perspective. They are bringing things that they learned from their families into schools that children are going to learn from them. So we have to prepare them when they go out into the wider world. And it's not that we can shape their minds. Yes, we can do that. But at the end of the day, we have to allow children to be children. You mentioned that before. You said you won't speak to a 2-year-old the way you speak to a 10-year-old, and you won't speak to a 1-year-old the way you speak to a 5-year-old. So it's just about shaping their minds and preparing them and allowing them to be the children that they need to be. They will have their own little perspectives on life at a young age. They will see things they want to do. They will see their parents, in a different light. And we have to respect that as parents and even as teachers. And when we see a different sort of talent in them, we have to push them. We have to inspire them. We have to support them. We have to motivate them to be the children that they were created to be. That's most important. We have to push them. If we see a talent in them, we see they love to draw, we know that they're going to be an aspiring artist. We see that they love to sing. They can be an aspiring vocalist. We see that they love to dance. Encourage them in ballet. Encourage them, in ballroom, in Latin, because where I'm from, we have a lot of cultural diversities. We have East Indians, we have Africans, we have Chinese, we have Venezuelans, we have Syrians in our country. So we are like a big callaloo pot, So we have a lot of different cultures here, and different children want to do different things. And we always encourage them, parents and teachers alike, to encourage them. Whatever they want to do, encourage them. Parents and teachers want the children to be teachers and lawyers and doctors. But what if they want to be a nurse? What if they want to be an actor? What if they want to be a seamstress or a tailor or a firefighter? Once we see those talents in them early, we push them and make them into the best person that they can be. They are going to be the best version of themselves. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you for that lovely sharing. I'm glad we are all collaborating in the space and everyone is actually speaking up and sharing about their own experiences in their community. How about Lumbai? Yes, Lumbai, do you have something to share?
Yes, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, thank you.
Good.
Do you have something to share?
Yes, my question goes like this. If a student failing to pass the next class, so is staying like a senior in the same class, you see. So, and then the younger ones coming from the level, the lower level to come to that class, like maybe 3 years. So, and then you're going to see that person because he's been there for a while, maybe 2 years of failing, and then he starts bullying other students. So what the teacher will do about that?
Then you must open a discussion. Why should an older person and a younger age group be shamed for being there? Is it because parents are frequently influencing them to think that at this certain age you must be in this level? For
Yes.
example, at 21 you should be going to college already, right?
Yeah.
These parents, influence the way the children think. So they already calculate this. Then they will think, if I'm 7 and I'm still in first grade, then there's something wrong with me because I'm not adhering to the goals of what my mom wants. And I want to achieve what my mom wants. I want to make her happy. And it will influence how I think or how I converse with other children. If I feel like my mom will or my dad will shame me for not achieving this specific goal of ours for the longest time, then as a child, I will also shame other people who won't be achieving as much as I feel like we should all be achieving. See, welcoming these conversations, even if they're young, well, of course, you have to put it in their shoes, just how I did with, for example, choosing a leader for the country. You have to reframe it to a situation that they will be able to understand. So, for example, for that situation, maybe what I will do is ask, if you have a sibling with a huge age gap, would you not be spending time with your sibling? Would you not be enjoying your time with them?
Yeah.
You would. You would.
Yeah.
For example, your neighbor, for example, you're an only child, you would seek connection. And the only person to connect with is, for example, this might be too extreme, but you're a grandpa, your neighborhood grandpa. Then this grandpa has nice company, right? So you
Yeah.
have to give examples such as these so that they can also reframe their mindset and put themselves in another person's shoes. So what makes you think that if you're able to enjoy your time with your younger sibling with a huge age gap, or your grandparents, you're able to enjoy time with them, then what makes it any difference with this person here inside our classroom? What makes you think that this person doesn't have their own ideas, opinions, emotions to share with you if you already enjoyed once from another place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the answer.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, last 2 questions, and then we'll wrap it up by looking at our Mentimeter. Yes, Potsalan.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I want to tell you that children are very, very smart, very, very smart, but we always brush them aside. I cite one example of my son being born to a Motswana parent and an American parent. So our neighbors had adopted a child. They were a white American couple, but they adopted a child who looks like me. And then there was a time when my son told me, he was very young, about 4. He said, oh, this boy's mommy was here. I said, what do you mean? Don't you know the mom? He said, no, no, no. If this child was their child, he would not look, he would not look like this. You see how I look? Because you and daddy are like this.
Mhm.
So of course I have a very, very friend because I like learning from kids. I'm not the parent who shouts. I know kids are much smarter, even students, when you are a teacher. So there are there's they observe these things. We should not say pretend that they don't see that there's a difference between people. They can see color or whatever, but they are not hostile like adults. They're very nice about it. Like when you approach them nicely, like my nephew, when I visited, he was about 2.5. He reached out to my head as soon as he was used to me. He wanted to feel the texture of my hair. He had no speech, but he was curious. But because I'm a close relative, he had no problem, touching my hair or what. And we are still very good friends. I also touch his hair when he has a short cut. So I must admit that we make mistakes as adults. We are the ones who come to identify these differences in color, height, or what as, so a big deal, as Americans would say. And yet it is not. When we just show them this is okay, this is normal, there's no problem. I know my kids I still enjoy the relationship with our cousins in the USA. Because the environment we created is not like, oh, this one looks like this. So I would urge us educators to take the lead, because this bringing change is not really difficult. If we stop labeling things as strange, as ridiculous, as what, because we're not used to this and that, then the kids pick it up from us. Otherwise, unfortunately, here in my country, we managed to send our kids to international schools. So it's not the first time you see a Chinese child or that one, and they become such friends. And my grandchildren have been attending in a school where it was, oh my goodness, all nations, because it was the Yale staff. You can imagine everybody coming from Yale is from any part of the world. So these kids at a small school, and they didn't see the difference between themselves. So much that the school kept on breaking their groups. When they moved to the next level, they had really become one solid block. So they kept on saying, okay, they make too much, whatever. So I would like to urge other educators that the kids don't see anything wrong. Yes, they observe that this hair is like this one, but then they take it as part of the environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that very passionate sharing, Botsolano. All right. One last one. Yes, Crispinas. Am I saying that correctly?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yeah, it is quite interesting to get to know that our children at the age of what we are discussing today, they have a lot to learn, and they have a lot to help us also learn and know what entails in their development journey. And you find that when it comes to issues like education, we, the adults, and especially the educators, have had a lot of stereotyping in terms of reference, that we always want to refer our children to a certain angle, a certain lifestyle, a certain culture, and this helps. It helps these children to relay their support in terms of mental, emotional, and even psychosocial development. And this is especially in Africa. And let me take an example, like in my country, Kenya. We see that there's a lot of changes that are happening today in terms of education system. And this one, if it doesn't get the well-placed educators, our children will not be able to identify exactly what is in them that they can capture, they can grow out with. They will always have, or rather they will always grow in the system that has a lot of challenges in terms of them not understanding and not getting exactly what they need to do as the future people, the future educators. Because as we grow up, we are leaving space for them, and this space must be filled with something that is much more valuable. But if we give out a situation in which they can't value it, they can't identify themselves with, then At the end of the day, our children will always be people who are working without the value of their age, value of their system in terms of their culture, in terms of appreciating other people's culture. They will want to get associated themselves with areas that they feel it is interesting, when in the actual sense, it is not what they are supposed to be, because they have missed that point, they have missed that level where we as educators, we as parents, we as adults have failed to give them a lead, a guide into capturing what they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that sharing, Crispinas. That actually concludes what we just talked about today. So we talked about how unequal opportunities due to different variables, such as lack of money, language barrier, unaddressed academic gaps, they will remain unsolved if us educators won't embrace the concept of diversity, and if we don't advocate for this even outside of the classroom, such as homes, community, our co-workers. And our main goal as teachers, as educators, is to find these gaps. Where are the gaps? And to scaffold and provide different approaches to the content, or strengthen our advocacy by being vocal to fellow partners in the community. And if you have the resources, why not both? So that all of our children achieve as equitably as their peers, regardless of the differences that influence classroom diversity. Thank you so much for engaging with me in this talk. I had a very lovely discussion with all of you, and hearing from all of you is very lovely, even widened my personal perspective as an educator. So thank you so much for being here today. Let's give ourselves 3 claps. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we definitely want to thank you, Taj Jimenez, for coming and giving these insights into really issues that need insights in order to really help children develop better and develop into a better world. Like you're saying with those dolls of different skin colors and of having limbs and without limbs, just little things like that set that image that to allow for a more inclusive future for everybody and more respect between peoples around the world. So you gave so many little ideas that come together into this beautiful vision of respecting the children's intelligence and their ability to be inclusive and to be loving in the future.
Exactly. I hope we are more reflective starting today, because as I said, the more you are attuned to yourself, the more you are able to accommodate the differences children have in the classroom.
So next time when you come back to talk, what topic would you want to talk about?
I feel like we should have a topic on how to bring these discussions outside the classroom. Like, how would you approach this discussion with a co-teacher? Like, how assertive would you be if you're going to bring this up with, for example, your local government unit? Because I see some questions from the chat pertaining about this one. They're asking how do we raise these conversations? Because I know it's difficult. I know sometimes it's kind of hard to bring it up, because they will say these are just children. They will learn that when they're old, but now they're just children. Go to school, go home, play, have their iPad. That's it. That's part of their childhood. Maybe some of the adults around us have this perspective. So I think, do we all agree this is what we should be talking about next time? How to approach these conversations with our fellow adults?
I think that's really a good idea, because how do you develop that policy, like from the government level to down to the schools, that policy of how to implement these ideas? Yes. I definitely agree. That's a very important issue that we should bring up, or that you should bring up. So yeah, we look forward to the next time when you can come back and talk about these issues. Well, everybody,
All right. Thank you so
that will
much for
do
the
it.
invitation.
I'm going to allow everybody to unmute their microphone so that they can say bye and thank you to you. Everybody, you can now unmute your microphones and speak.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.